And praise the Lord, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of the Showdown at Sundown Live Bible Study, where we, of course, will present here tonight history and politics through a Christian worldview. And when I say a Christian worldview, I'm not talking about the white nationalist worldview, which passes as the Christian worldview these days, the quote unquote Christian worldview. We're going to be debunking a lot of myths tonight, and we're coming to you live on Confederacy, Revisionism, and the smearing of Jasmine Crockett. We have a lot to present tonight, so just buckle up and get ready for a good time. We're here for a good time, not for a long time. So, without further ado, I will introduce my two guests. Well, allow them to introduce themselves, if you will, starting with our good brother J Mac, who's been a frequent guest on the program, and also good brother George Middleton with us tonight. Brother J Mac, introduce yourself and tell us where our listeners can follow you.
Thank you, brother. So I'm brother Jay, and been rocking with brother Charles for a little while now, and we tackle these issues and other issues concerning the church. And I think this is a great topic. Some other brothers have uh, discussed this, so it kind of sparked my interest. But I do have a channel. I got quite a few channels, but more specifically dealing with these kind of issues is Modern Disciples. You can find me under Modern Disciples on YouTube. And but my if you look up JT Mac on YouTube, that's more music. So just letting y'all know. And I'm gonna get out of the way of this brother George because he's a music extraordinaire.
Okay, brother George, tell us about yourself and tell our listeners where they can find you to follow you on social media and so forth.
All right. Happy to be back here with you guys hanging out. Looking forward to chopping up a really healthy discussion here on some very relevant issues going on. I'm George Middleton. I'm a mental health therapist. I'm a musician. I'm an author. I'm promoting a series of works addressing the issue of mental health and race is front and center in a lot of the issues that we're dealing with. And so I'm addressing it from an evidence-based behavioral change platform. Sounds really boring, I know, but I'm done with all the talking and want to actually do some changing of the scenarios because we are in a very critical moment as a country at large and as a community in particular as pertaining to the Black racial demographic. So happy to be here. You can catch me on all the social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. I've started a new solo podcast series called In the Middle with George Middleton. So I'm taking on some very challenging contemporary issues and looking to find the theme is that the truth often lies in the middle. So usually there's, you remember the old story that the old folks used to say there's three sides to every story, right?
Right.
Yours, mine, and the facts.
True. Right.
So happy to be here.
Oh, and we're happy to have you, of course, as we talk about Confederacy revisionism. This is a thing that has come front and center within the MAGA movement, especially a rebranding of the Confederacy, what it meant, what it did. You get into arguments about the cause of the Civil War. And of course, it was promulgated by an organization called the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And they're responsible for what's known as the lost cause rhetoric, romanticizing the antebellum South. And of course, the crafting of the quote unquote happy slave narrative and the quote unquote there were good slave masters narrative, and also using the book of scripture, the Holy Bible, especially the Old Testament, to actually justify the existence of the institution of slavery. And then that equivocation that they do on slavery. Oh, black people were enslaved, but white people were also enslaved. And Chinese people enslave one another, African tribes enslave one another. You know, slavery is as slavery does, let them tell it. And that there was nothing in particular uh, about African chattel slavery in the Americas and in the southern United States that really stood out from slavery on the world stage. So we're here to debunk a lot of those myths tonight and how they relate to the smearing of Jasmine Crockett, especially by black faces, and this idea of hiring a black face or co-opting a black face to go after and to critique and criticize black people and that whole thing that's happening. So we got a lot to get into tonight. I want to lead off with something that is unequivocal. And when I taught history, I actually would present these historical documents for the review of my students because I feel like if we're gonna know what the cause of the Civil War was and why the Confederacy went to the extreme measure of leaving the United States of America to form their own country with their own president, their own vice president, their own Congress, their own judiciary. Look, y'all, they even printed their own money. They formed a new country and they told us why they did this. So it's not really something that we have to guess about. I mean, we can listen to these folks meander and muffle, but I want to share my first item and I'm going to turn over to you brothers to share as well. One of the things that I shared with my students was the cornerstone speech that was given at the first Confederate Congress. Don't say that too loud these days. The first Confederate Congress by Vice President of the Confederacy, then Alexander Stephens. And I want to point out precisely what he highlights as I share my screen here. And I do want to share my screen, and I want to share the language of the cornerstone speech here. And I have it pulled up now. And in the language of the cornerstone speech, I want to highlight a couple of things. And let me highlight these things here. He says, our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea of what he elucidated previously, which he spoke of the Constitution, meaning the Constitution from the founding of the Republic. And then he spoke of our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests upon the great truth. Now, look at what he says here, upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man. See, so he's letting you know what the cornerstone and the foundation of the Confederacy is, why they are forming this new government. He says very plainly that it is founded upon the great truth. He calls it the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man. That's this great truth. That the Negro is not equal to the white man. That slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. Do we see that? So this is the great truth that the Confederacy was built upon. And it was that the Negro is not equal to the white man, and that slavery subordination to the superior race. So now we have white supremacy being introduced here because the white race is now the superior race. That slavery subordination to the superior race is his, look at what he says here, natural and normal condition. This, our new government, watch this now, is the first. Look at what he says. Our new government is the first in the history of the world. So do you see how he establishes a peculiarity to the particular institution of slavery that was practiced by the Confederacy and defended by the Confederacy. He says it's the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. See, and so now we can really glean from just that, as I shared here from the First Continental Congress, Vice President Alexander Stevens. He makes it very plain, and I think we lost our good brother, but hopefully he'll be coming back. But he makes it very plain what the Confederacy is, why it was formed. So now, since we know this, and since I have just shared this, how can anybody come along there in 2025 and say, "Oh, it's heritage"? It's not hate; it's heritage. And as they celebrate the Confederacy and commemorate the Confederacy, Robert E. Lee's birthday and so forth, Robert E. Lee Day, National Confederate Day, like my home state of Mississippi loves to do. How can they pretend that what we just read is not true, or the gaslighting that they do about it, trying to revise history, historic revisionism? So I want you two brothers to give your thoughts on what you heard so far.
Yeah, I think what you explained, the attempt to sanitize history. They call it the lost cause mythology. And AI has a really good explanation. I'm gonna read it real quick. AI says, oh, matter of fact, let me share. This is too good not to share. Let me do that. Share screen. There we go. Should be coming up there, Brother Charles. Awesome. The lost cause mythology is a pseudo-historical narrative romanticizing the Confederacy and the American Civil War, claiming the war was about states' rights and preserving Southern way of life, not slavery, like Chad O. Johnson is trying to. Chad O. Jackson tries to argue, not slavery, downplaying slavery's role, glorifying Confederate leaders who were who should have been locked up. They should have been hung or locked up for their treason, and portraying enslaved people as content. Excuse me. Developed by white Southerners post-war, it served to justify secession, reinforce white supremacy, and ease Southern guilt, distorting history by ignoring the centrality of slavery to the conflict and Reconstruction, becoming a persistent cultural force in American memory. And I'll stop sharing on that. So that's what I have to say about what you just read right there, brother.
Absolutely. As we delve further into it, we want to bring in good brother George Middleton to give his thoughts and to also share what he feels about this.
The root of the matter is belief, and it is belief in this concept of whiteness. That's what is driving this continued love affair with the Confederacy. Off of Dr. Jane Batalora, who's known for her work titled Birth of a White Nation. She starts off by informing the listeners that there was no such thing as white people before the year 1681. Mm. And we often overlook that and act as if that's just some piece of trivia, just some quaint trivia that has nothing to do with what's going on today. But what we've done is we're having this debate, we're fighting a war, we're having this conflict in an environment of irrational belief. The belief that there is this racial hierarchy. And that is what the Confederacy really stands for. It stands for its commitment to the racial hierarchy, which is white supremacy, which means it doesn't mean that white people reign supreme. It means that in this society, white is higher in any context than black. And because we're dealing with this as if it's a real and valid concept, we continue to repeat the same loop. So just because you change the law, you can abolish slavery, you can, say that you beat the Confederacy in a physical conflict. But if you didn't address the belief that was behind it, then all a person does is find a way to express that deeply held belief. And as it pertains to white supremacy, all of us, which this may throw a lot of people, but all of us are complicit in perpetuating this concept of whiteness. And so we're in this really cognitive dissonance effort, even with what we're doing right now, trying to bring awareness to how this Confederacy and this love for the flag and the symbols and the statues, how it is something that we should not want to do. But the fact that we all in this country practice the belief in white supremacy, we end up becoming accomplices to that. And so what we're doing now, I want to caution us by saying, let's understand that this is not our game. This is their game. The fact that they are able to continue perpetuating white supremacy, that they're now bringing the statues back, that they're attacking civil rights, which is a prime component of the Confederacy, right? They're doing this overtly in our face. They're telling us this is what they're going to do. They're no longer hiding it. And they've made a big policy manual called Project 2025, which is rolling this out in legal terms. So we really ought to understand, first of all, that we're dealing in a concept of irrational belief, that there's a real thing called white people. And as long as we continue to affirm white people, we're going to continue this crazy battle. And the second thing is, because we believe it, we also have allowed it to be in our systems of service and law. So it is now legal. And so if we're not understanding those two components, then we're having a great discussion, but we're not doing anything to actually strategize our way out of this.
Exactly right. Those are some excellent points. And Brother J Mac, I understand you have a video that you would like to play. You're muted.
Yeah, I wanted to play a clip from Brother Isaiah Robinson, Pastor Isaiah
All right.
Robinson.
Okay, shouts out to Pastor Isaiah Robinson. And
I couldn't
definitely.
I couldn't find the original clip of Chad Jackson sanitizing the Confederacy. So we're going to use Brother Isaiah's video. And then I want to show, after that, I'm going to show a document, a historical document too.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And before we do that, we definitely want to point to our fair use.
Yes, sir.
We got to do that. So fair use. Do you see this YouTube? Shouts out to YouTube. But yeah, we have to point out this fair use just simply because we don't want to get the channel struck with copyright claims and so forth. So fair use, simply put, is in good faith. This work contains fair use of copyrighted and non-copyrighted images from the public domain and the web for non-commercial and non-profit educational purposes. This work is distributed free of charge. The author has neither monetized this work nor sought any profit from its distribution. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by the copyright statute and may otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. This work contains original work of commentary and critical analysis. Quotations are attributed to the original authors and sources. So I did want to highlight that because we got to get our fair use in there for the health of the channel. And of course, we shout out to Pastor Isaiah Robinson for the excellent work that he's doing in urban apologetics, the excellent work that he's doing in unmasking what he and I refer to as the coon pulpit, because we got some preachers in there that are definitely not for the people and not with the people. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this to the stage, and it's ready for you, Brother J Mac.
Okay, great, and also shout out to Professor Robert Ash. Both of brothers did a great job. Let me go ahead and play their playing of Chad O. Jackson.
Carolina, somewhere in the South, of course, all white audience. Listen to Chad O. Jackson.
Slavery existed in America. It existed in several southern states. And they were threatening to secede from the Union, not because of slavery, but because of states' rights, because they were still bitter about how the Constitution was ratified on the first part, but also the fact that you saw these kind of maneuvers that were being made since the ratification of the northern states imposing their will all the more on the southern states.
Now, this is what we call a Confederate apologist. This gentleman just said that the Civil War was not over slavery, it was over states' rights, okay, and the North bullying the South, and something else he said. I don't know what's it. So, in light of what he just said, I'm going to pull up this document here, real quick. Get back to this. Okay. Okay, here we go. Let me share this one there real quick. Stop sharing that. And we're going to share this document. There we go. Should be coming through, Brother Charles.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. This website is the Declaration of Causes of Seceding States. These are letters written by these four states: Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, Texas, and Virginia. Well, we're going to jump down to Mississippi because this is the most
Mississippi,
the most glaring letter.
Hey, the hospitality state.
Right.
Hey, can you make it just a little bit bigger?
Yes, sir.
Control plus.
Yes, sir. You let me know let me know when it's big enough.
One more. Yeah, that should be it. And then scroll back up.
Okay.
There we go.
Get back up here. Let me see, where am I? I'm in Georgia. Let me go back down.
Georgia. Georgia. little Ray Charles sprinkled in.
Ray Charles, yeah. And all right. Mississippi says a declaration of the immediate causes which induced and justify the secession of the state of Mississippi from the federal union.
Okay. Okay. So just to recap, they're declaring the cause. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
That they are declaring the clause of their secession from the federal union. So they're declaring their cause. So since they are declaring their own clause, nobody can come around later in 2025 and give a different cause.
What is it, 140 years later or however many years?
Right. I mean, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is some gaslighting on epic proportions. But let's hear from Mississippi.
Yeah.
Let's let them declare their cause.
Mississippi says, I do declare in the momentous steps which our state has taken of dissolving its connection with the government of which we so long formed a part, it's just that we should declare the prominent reasons which have induced our course. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery.
Whoa, hold on. So they've declared their cause, and they have said that their cause is, does it say thoroughly identified?
Thoroughly
identified with the institution of slavery. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And is it about to call slavery the greatest something?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. And I'm trying to
make sure I'm following along.
I'm trying to conjure up my foghorn fog leg voice because that dude be having me crying, laughing. But he said, our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. Its labor supplies the product which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of commerce of the earth. These products are peculiar to the climate verging on the tropical regions, and by an imperious law of nature, none but the black race can be exposure to the tropical sun.
Oh. So now we're getting biological. So since the blacks can handle the sun better, we got to use them, because how else is labor gonna get done outside? Oh, okay.
And he says these products have been become necessities of the world, and a blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization. The blow has been long aimed at the institution and was at the point of reaching its consummation. There was no choice left us but submission to the mandates of abolition or a dissolution of the Union, which principles had been subverted to work out our ruin, that we do not overstate the dangers to our institution. A reference to a few facts will sufficiently prove.
Okay, so the blow was coming. They just got out the way of it by leaving the Union. So they saw the blow coming, and they evaded the blow by seceding from the Union. Isn't that something? Now,
and I want to say that if you all want to pull up that those documents, each state is pretty much saying something similar. I use Mississippi because Mississippi is taking all the sugar out of it. they pouring vinegar and gasoline on
it. Listen. You know, funny thing about that is back in the early 2000s, I was a voter registration coordinator working for the NAACP. And I used to get into debates back then about the Confederate flag being on the state capitol. And I used to have around with me the cessation documents. I used to actually use those to argue against their position. Like they would say, oh, it's heritage. It's not hate, it's heritage. And I'm like, well, no, it's not heritage. What it is right here. It's slavery. It's a heritage of slavery. States' rights to own black people,
right?
Put them out in the sun, because the black people are naturally created to work out in the sun. They can take it. Nobody else can take that tropical heat. So we got to get the blacks out there, and in order to make them go out there, we got to own them. And
So let me ask this question
with that presentation, but that's what it is.
So that's good, brother. Let me ask this question, and George, you can weigh in on this. If someone who passes himself off as a historian and a researcher, their whole premise is built on a lie, meaning he said emphatically that it was not about states. I mean, it was not about slavery. It was about states' rights. So if his entire premise is built on that, his entire argument, in my opinion, and I think it's in how do I say this? In the arena of scholars and historians, if your entire premise is based on a faulty foundation, I think they throw your entire work out. They don't take you serious. Am I off here? Or
in most cases, but when that lie is necessary in order to fulfill their economic agenda, then it'll do.
Right. So it's kind of like an ends justify the means kind of thing. It's a useful lie. And back to General Sun Tzu, all warfare is deception, right? And then you got a bunch of useful idiots that'll actually believe it and buy into it hook, line, and sinker, because it actually reinforces their own prejudices and biases that they already have. And so it's more so of a confirmation bias that makes them comfortable. And when we begin to tell the truth, that upsets their comfort. And, before you know it, they'll be calling us racist, because, the people that bring up racism are the real racists, right? Like, I get that so much. I'm like, why you know what they call it? Playing a race card, right? And it's like, I didn't even put the card in the deck. How did I get to play it? I didn't put it in the deck. And as you pointed out, good brother George, about before 1681, there were no white people. Now, there were people that were from certain areas that you would call white people, but they weren't called white people. Race is a social construct that was invented by certain people for a certain purpose, and that purpose was to create a system of hierarchy based upon race and to put themselves at the top of that hierarchy.
That's it. And the tragic nature of this is by the document that Brother Jay just read, is that as harsh as that sounded, it's founded on belief. They really believe this stuff. It's not that they were just being assholes, pardon my French.
Yeah.
But they were conditioned to really believe that this is the way God intended it. And it allowed them to go full hook, line, and sinker in enslaving us. We weren't considered human, legally, or morally. And that justified all of the harsh treatment and exploitation, which they became economically dependent upon. So when you fuel belief with your economic survival, man, that is a strong combination of factors that trying to appeal to one's reason alone is not going to work.
Right. Especially when they have such a vested financial interest in the continuation of slavery, as they put it in their declaration, that it was essential to world commerce. They didn't even just leave it to the state of Mississippi's commerce, but they wanted to make this thing global. This thing was worldwide. They needed slaves for the worldwide economy. And if we lose slavery, then the whole world is going to collapse. I mean, my goodness, talk about being dramatic. They thought that if they lost slavery, the whole world would collapse. My goodness. And ironically speaking, as certain countries got rid of the institution of slavery officially, and the Confederacy was like one of those last countries that were trying to hang on to it. The world didn't collapse for some odd reason.
yeah, they I don't know if can you hear me, brother?
Yes, sir. He loud and clear.
There were a Corin amendment that was proposed in 1861 that would allow them to keep their slaves, the keep the institution of slavery in the South. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think one of the issues was that they would not try to expand it to the other states. And
right,
of course,
right.
Yeah.
And that's a great point that you're making, because as the United States was expanding out west, you had new states coming into the Union. Yeah. And those new states were choosing whether to be free states or whether to be slave states. And the reason why the Confederacy couldn't go along with that law is because they wanted slavery to expand. Because the more slavery expanded, the better its chances of survival. Whereas it's almost like if you're trying to put out a fire, you got to isolate that fire. And then you got to start smothering that fire. You got to deprive it of oxygen. And according to the northern states' ideology, depriving slavery of oxygen would eventually cause it to die out. And the Confederates, or who would futurely become the Confederates, actually had the opposite idea. We need to keep this fire expanding, so we can't deprive it of oxygen. So we have to keep it expanding. And this is one of the things that kicked off the campaign militarily of the Captain John Brown, and what history remembers as Bloody Kansas, and his run-in with the slaveholders trying to force the Congress of the state of Kansas to adopt slavery. And they were applying thug tactics and, real strong-arm tactics, trying to force state congressmen to actually codify slavery and make Kansas a slave state. And the Captain John Brown, of course, waged war on those individuals in what became known as Bloody Kansas. And so actually the fight over the expansion of slavery is one of the things that brought the Civil War to a head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good stuff. I wanted to play a little bit of clip they had also found. They dug up, it's like a little animated illustration of the lost cause of the
so we're going back to what you have in the queue.
Yeah. It's a different video. Yeah.
Gotcha, brother. We ready for you.
Okay, hang on. Get that up here.
1966, barely a year after the war ended, Southern sources began claiming the conflict wasn't actually about slavery. Meanwhile, Frederick Douglass, a prominent abolitionist and formerly enslaved person, cautioned, "The spirit of secession is stronger today than ever." From the words of Confederate leaders, the reason for the war could not have been clearer. It was slavery. So how did this revisionist history come about? The answer lies in the lost cause, a cultural myth about the Confederacy. The term was coined by Edward Pollard, a pro-Confederate journalist. In 1866, he published The Lost Cause, a new Southern history of the War of the Confederates. Pollard pointed out that the U.S. Constitution gave states the right to govern themselves independently in all areas except those explicitly designated to the national government. According to him, the Confederacy wasn't defending slavery. It was defending each state's right to choose whether or not to allow slavery. This explanation effectively turned white Southerners' documented defense of slavery and white supremacy into a patriotic defense of the Constitution. The Civil War had devastated the country, leaving those who had supported the Confederacy grasping to justify their actions. Many pro-Confederate writers, political leaders, and others were quick to adopt and spread the narrative of the lost cause. One organization, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, played a key role in transmitting the ideas of the lost cause to future generations. Founded in Nashville, Tennessee in 1894, the UDC united thousands of middle and upper-class white Southern women. The UDC raised thousands of dollars to build monuments to Confederate soldiers. These were often unveiled with large public ceremonies and given prominent placements, especially on courthouse lawns. The Daughters also placed Confederate portraits in public schools. They monitored textbooks to minimize the horrors of slavery and its significance in the Civil War, passing revisionist history and racist ideology down through generations. By 1918, the UDC claimed over 100,000 members. As their numbers grew, they increased their influence outside the South. Presidents William Howard Taft and Woodrow Wilson both met with UDC members and enabled them to memorialize the Confederacy and Arlington National Cemetery. The UDC still exists and defends Confederate symbols as part of a noble heritage of sacrifice by their ancestors. Despite the wealth of primary sources showing that slavery was the root cause of the Civil War, the myth about states' rights persists today.
And there it is.
Yep, the myth persists to this day. Can you imagine American presidents allowing Confederate monuments and Confederate soldiers to be in Arlington National Cemetery, where the dead that they actually had slain are laying there? And you have the enemy of the United States in a war, and the most casualties of any war that we fought, to actually rest beside the Union soldiers there in Arlington National Cemetery. What a travesty.
A whole insurrection and sedition. What is the penalty for sedition, Brother Charles?
Penalty for treason is death. Which brings us to an interesting point of American history, is that once General Robert E. Lee surrendered the United Army of the Confederacy, and specifically the Army of Northern Virginia, to General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in the state of Virginia, they undertook an effort to repatriate the Confederate generals. Can you imagine the President of the United States calling the military to arms, and generals within that military that have taken an oath to obey the command of the President of the United States refusing the call and leaving the army, leaving the armed services, and going to their states to raise armies to fight against that president? There has been no more clear example of treason in the history of the United States of America. Military generals turning their armies and their guns against their own duly elected president. Have there been traitors in the history of the United States of America more worthy of death than those individuals, like General Robert E. Lee? Yes. Worthy of the gallows, should have been hanged for treason, and yet was allowed to be repatriated. Look, the president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis, arrested, held for a while in prison, and then released to return to his lands that had been restored to him and to live out his days to a ripe old age. Can you imagine? This man called himself president against the actual president, and yet he gets repatriated. That is probably the best example of white privilege that you could ever point to, because no way, if those men were not white, would they have been afforded the privilege of repatriation into the United States after committing the heights of treason against the United States. What say you?
I'd say real quick that the United States failure to properly address the sedition, to properly address the insurrection, to properly address the treason, is why we're where we are right now. Not land on that.
I would grant you that and take it one step further. It's not only that, but they won't address it because they are all in agreement on the one unifying factor, that regardless of their conflicts politically, their code as a white race cuts through all of that. So it doesn't matter if you're from the North or you're from the South. You can have differing opinions about slavery, but the one thing that doesn't change is your position in that hierarchy. And so that is why in America, the white male, the racially classified white male, will never be truly held accountable for many of the atrocities that he is known for historically and currently, because this is still happening today. The white nationalists, the white extremists are the number one domestic terrorists in this country, and no one is even really holding them accountable.
Yeah.
Won't you note, Brother George, that report that established what you just said, that came out several years ago, has actually been rescinded and
yes.
amended
to
yes. not say that.
To not say that.
Right. Yeah, this is the level of gaslighting that we're dealing with here, gentlemen. As they continue to revise and to try to make you think that no, that wasn't what it was. It was something different. And they're trying to play a Jedi mind trick on you. These are not the Confederates you've been looking for. These are not the Confederates that you've been looking for. And you know, as we know from Star Wars lore, Jedi mind tricks only work on the weak-minded.
Right.
The unfortunate part about it is that so much of America is weak-minded and very susceptible to propaganda. I see it all the time on social media, people posting fake memes, fake pictures as if it's true. And they believe that it's true. Good brother George, it goes back to belief, doesn't it? It goes back to belief, doesn't it?
Thank you. I want to pick up on that real quick, just said, because that's what they needed, our belief then, and they need our belief now for this Confederacy to effectively come back into its glory days. And if we really understand the power of that, if we really understand what that means, that they needed our belief then, and they need it now for this to actually work. And the belief, if you believe in one lie, that sets you up to believe in the rest of the lies they're going to tell you later.
Right.
And the first lie that makes us, to use your words, vulnerable mentally, is the belief that there's this thing called white people. Now, I know I keep sounding redundant in bringing this up, but as long as we keep giving white people affirmation like it's a real thing, then we're going to get the rest of what comes with that. If we're going to actually mount an actual effective strategy against what they're effectively doing right now, it begins with robbing them of this belief in who they think they are, who they want us to believe that they are. It starts there.
Right.
The social construct. Yeah.
You're not white people. You're just people. You're just people just like any other people. You see how that takes them down from being in a position of supremacy and makes them just like everybody else, because they are just like everybody else. I mean, there's only one race, and that's the human race. So this whole construct of race has been constructed by certain individuals to make sure that their race is at the top. Race wasn't created by black people. It wasn't created by Orientals. It wasn't created by the Europeans. Americans. It was created by Europeans, right? Yeah.
That's right.
So in order for us to understand what the race card is, we have to understand who put it in the deck.
Who made the game.
Who made the deck. Basically, who made the game. Think about Monopoly. Who made the game? We grew up loving Monopoly, but you know what Monopoly does in its indoctrination into laissez-faire capitalism? It teaches you that you only win when you eliminate everybody else from being fiscally competitive with you. You have to establish yourself and disable the other players. You basically have to turn them into paupers in order for you to win the game.
Wow. Well,
And-
I never looked at it like that.
Well, yeah, but when you look at the creators of Monopoly, that's exactly what they were trying to foster. I'm not saying don't play Monopoly. Look, Monopoly is a fun game, but I'm saying when you're engaging in Monopoly, you need to be aware of the indoctrination and what Monopoly is trying to teach you. Monopoly is trying to teach you the American game. But you want to know the big secret to the American game, and it's been the case since before 1776. People that look like us were never intended to be players on the board. they never expected us to become players on the board. If you could hop in a DeLorean, hit 88 miles per hour, go back in time to grab a Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black, throw him in the trunk, and then come back to 2025 and let Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black look around, who was infamous on the Dred Scott decision, supporting the majority opinion that the black man has no rights that the white man is bound to recognize. Do we see that? And just imagine the shock that Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black would have if he could see America in 2025. It was never intended to be what it has become, and it's actually up to us to take these systems, as Dr. King was trying to do, take these systems and impose upon these systems a methodology of fairness to make the playing field equal. And Dr. King highlighted this in his NBC interview the year he was assassinated. This interview took place in the month of February. And of course, he was assassinated on April 4th of 1968. But you can find this NBC interview from February of 1968, where Dr. King is asked by the NBC reporter. And it's a very interesting question, because people ask that same question, I've noticed even today in 2025. They say, well, hey, how come black people can't do like the Ethiopians have done when they come in and get loans and start businesses and prosper, or like the Italians did, or like the Irish did, and naming all of these different immigrant groups? And why are the black people behind the curve on this? And Dr. King had, I think it's the best way to possibly answer that question. And like I said, people still ask that question in 2025. The black race is the only race of people that started out in this country as a slave race. So our oppression was written into the fabric of this country. So even when immigrants came in, and even though immigrants were discriminated against, they still got a hand. We didn't get a hand except to get slapped. Yeah, so while they were slapping us around, they were extended a hand of these other immigrant groups and eventually putting them before us. When the Irish first came into this country as immigrants on the boat, and bringing the La Cosa Nostra in here along with them. And we got all our mafia and gangster movies and gangster shows that we love to watch. They were the Irish. But guess what happens 2 generations into their arrival? Now they become white. The Italians came in, brought their La Cosa Nostra, looking out for one another. They were the Italians, right? And they were discriminated against. You can even see pictures of signs back then that people used to hang in their businesses. Italians need not apply. But guess what happens 2 generations into the arrival of the Italians? They become white. So do you see even, and people think this is crazy, but even Hispanics that have come in and that have immigrated here, before they had their own classification. You hear what I'm saying? Before they had their own classification, guess what? 2 generations again, they're considered white.
That's
And a
right.
lot of people look over that. The only people that have never made that transition over is us. We were always considered non-white, and that is actually what put us behind the curve on taking advantage of the opportunities that this country has provided to those whom they have selected and elected to provide those opportunities to. And when they did not want to provide those opportunities to Black people, they did not. And that set us back generations. And then people think you're being racist when you bring up the history. But the history is how the present got to where it is. So you can't pretend like the history is disconnected from the present. And when I say history, I'm not talking ancient history, man. This is recent history. This is like my grandmother and my great-grandmother. This is within my living memory, connected directly to that history. What are your thoughts?
Well, you made an excellent spot on explanation, rationale, and justification for why I think we should do something that most of us just won't consider doing. And what I'm going to say is going to sound really just like nonsensical. But everything you just said supports what I'm going to say. That is the very reason why we, who are racially labeled, classified Black in this country, should officially leave that classification. We should leave the game. It's their game. We're not going to ever be equal to white in the way America plays this. And that is the cognitive dissonance that is driving us literally into mental health disorders, because we are in a constant position of trying to prove our worthiness as compared to the white standard. And for every gain that we think we make, they find ways to legally take it back. So we keep fighting and losing and fighting and losing, because we are the only group that can't do what every other group can do, because we were not designed to do that. And it is to our demise if we continue to keep going to this white power system, demanding from them fair treatment. It's not going to happen. And this revisionist Confederacy initiative is another amber log on the fire of proof of that.
That's some good commentary from both of you guys. I guess my position is I don't disagree with you in principle. I guess my position is the Constitution affords us certain rights, and my ancestors fought for those, so I'm gonna keep fighting for those rights. But that's my position, though. You know.
So to your Constitution, let me put this question to you guys and tell me what you think. Is it fair? Well, let me reframe that. Are you comfortable knowing that your white American counterpart does not need an amendment to be an American like we do?
No, I'm not comfortable with that.
So if we're truly,
no, we're not comfortable with that.
so if we're truly American, should we require an amendment to be American if our white counterparts don't?
I don't think we should have to. I think the Constitution in and of itself, but when they took out the nonsense, they took out the 3/5 of a man and all that other trash, and when they got rid of that, or at least wrote amendments to it, it shouldn't have to be. But the problem is the original Constitution, where it was written, had problems. So
it had problems.
It
had problems because it was written by those who never intended on giving people that look like me and you what the Constitution said, which is equality. All
Right.
men created
Right.
equal. So again,
Right.
here we are in 2025 now, and we're supposed to be men, right? We're supposed to be men, and we're supposed to
Right.
be American. And we as men are saying, okay, it's not cool, but okay, we require the amendment and you don't. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that mentality. If we stop and we're okay with that, that's how the game wins. Because once you give in part of your manhood, then they take more. We
Yeah.
as men should not be resting on our laurels today in 2025 that we need an amendment for our Americanness.
Yeah, and look, and your point and your critique is well founded. It's well founded and established in the original hypocrisy, right, of America, which is in the Declaration of Independence. The man, affectionately known by historians as the Sage of Monticello, Mr. Thomas Jefferson, who wrote "All men are created equal." Himself owned 600 slaves when he wrote that, right? so it's like all men are created equal, but you own 600 slaves. So how do you explain that? And this is not a challenge that only we who are generations later have lodged at him. Individuals that were his contemporaries critiqued him on this.
Right.
And he acknowledged the contradiction, of course, and warned his contemporaries at the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that there is a wolf in the room. All right. We can neither hold him safely, nor can we let him go.
Let him go.
And the wolf in the room was the institution of slavery.
Exactly.
Because there were states that were against slavery and didn't want the Constitution to codify slavery. And of course, the slaveholders wanted the Constitution to codify slavery. So that's how they came up with the 3/5 compromise. The southern states who owned slaves wanted slavery to be in the Constitution. So they wanted their slaves to count as a full person for congressional representation so that they could pass a law making slavery the law of the land or amend the Constitution and put slavery in there. And the other states did not. So they said, since you're not going to afford your slaves any rights of citizens, then you can't count them as a person at all. And this almost split up the nation before the nation could even unite to continue to fight against the British and to press their independence claim. So in order to keep the southern states on board, they came up with a compromise that you can count your slaves, but you can count them as 3/5 of a person. And counting them as 3/5 of a person would give them enough power to satisfy them, but would not give them enough power to amend the Constitution to put slavery in or to codify slavery as the law of the land through federal legislation. And that was just, if you're familiar with football, when it's 4th and long, you punt the ball back to the other team, right? So they were just punting slavery down the line. And of course, it was of no empathy at all to us, who our people were suffering under slavery while they were pontificating and politicking with one another, trying to figure out what to do about it. But eventually, the grandchildren of Thomas Jefferson would fight each other on opposite sides in the Civil War. And as the Captain John Brown pointed out, this is an issue that would only be decided by blood. That's why Captain John Brown was actually shedding blood. That's why the Kansas incident is called Bloody Kansas, because he knew that people are going to have to die in order for this to change. And that's exactly what it was. And so, yes, those points are well founded, not only in history, but they're philosophically sound. I think what the brother J Mac is saying is that because the Constitution has been amended, and then when we say amended, they put that trap door in the 13th Amendment that, slavery shall not exist at all within the United States of America unless you're convicted of a crime. And if by due process that you could be deprived of your life, of your liberty, and of your property, that allowed the southern states who had been defeated in the Civil War to actually rebrand the penal system and create new laws to criminalize observable black behavior. This is the origin of your anti-solicitation, your anti-loitering laws, right? Because immediately after slavery, the newly freed slaves were walking around looking for work. So they were often here and there hanging out, trying to find jobs. So they invented anti-loitering laws to say, hey, we can lock them up. I think we lost a good brother, but hopefully he'll come back when he can. Okay. But now we're going to lock the black people up because now it's a crime to loiter. You see what I mean? And it is, you know, that kind of adaptation. Good to have you back, good brother. That's the kind of adaptation that the southern states were able to do to continue the system of oppression that slavery was in another mode, in another form. And this beast, we're fighting with the beast, no justice, no peace, because this beast continues to evolve into other modes. And it's almost like playing whack-a-mole, and that frustration is definitely palatable. But that's the perspective that Brother J. Mack is laying out, to continue to work for liberation of our people through this framework, because the framework isn't going anywhere. How would you respond to that, good brother George?
So I agree with you, you know, and that's one way of trying to work within the context of the Constitution to try to address it. However, I don't think that that's effective. I mean, we're losing ground. We're poised to lose even more ground in 2026. And here's the one thing that we're not doing that they're doing very effectively is they have created and are driving a very heavy narrative. We're not going to fight this by saying, hey, look, you guys, this isn't right what you're doing. Hey guys, the Constitution says that we're supposed to be able to do this. That's not how we're going to win this. We have to have an equally and even more powerful narrative to counter their lie. Because that's how they're doing it. They are utilizing and exploiting the vulnerability of the masses of America who believe that they're white. Understand that now. When you believe you're white, you are vulnerable to any other type of psychological manipulation. And they're using that through the fear game, through the otherizing, through the immigration scare tactics, through the high black crime rates, all of that. They're using all of these stereotypes that have a deep subconscious impact on the white identity thinking. And what we're not doing as a black racial demographic, we're being used to further their agenda. We're actually being used by them because they know how to put us in positions where we have to react. Once we react, we have now confirmed white identity think. We've got to have a different narrative that overwhelms this white-centric narrative.
That's interesting. Just good points. Also, Brother Charles, I want to point out before we switch over to the other topic, you got some questions in the chat on this particular topic.
Okay, yeah. So let's get some questions. I was actually on the wrong screen, so let me get on the right screen, and we have some comments here. Let me see. We got some irrelevant comments here. What are these folks talking about? Oh no, look like you about to go rob a bank or something. What's going on with this guy? Oh, this place too black for me. Bye, fellas. What are you doing? Oh my goodness. I don't know. I guess some kind of comic relief or something like that. I don't know. But hey, he's listening. So what can you do, right? Brother Mark Harris says listening and watching. He says, the very name of the board game Monopoly says it all, what its secret purpose was when the game was created. So true, so true. Here's his point here. I'm curious to know what kind of so-called loans allegedly that's being given to immigrants today that we Black Americans cannot get or are being refused. I need more research on that because I'm not sure if that is 100% true. I keep hearing that, and I want to know how much of it is actually true. Can someone lead me to the evidence? Because I have been wanting to know that, and no one has been able to give me the answer. Well, good brother Mark Harris, when I brought that point up, I was speaking from a historical perspective, which is that discrimination against Black people was very high during the arrivals of the Irish immigrants and the Italian immigrants. And like I said, after being here for a little while, I just one generation on into the second generation, they were able to then be classified as white. And so they could have then access to loans to start businesses, for example, that Black people still could not get. The biggest thing is the mortgage, like mortgages. That is how the mortgage basically created the middle class, and access to mortgages is what allowed poor white families to pay into a home, develop equity, and then borrow against that equity to send their children to college, to get degrees, to become professionals. And that's how that generational line was able to get their way out of poverty. And when it came to Black people in the mortgage, they were denied even the GI Bill, which establishes that assistance for veterans of the United States military. Even the GI Bill was slow to incorporate Black soldiers into it. And then when they were basically forced by law to include black veterans into the GI Bill, the mortgages that they would actually extend to them, the mortgage loans, were actually of the least desirable properties. And this leads to the process that we call redlining, where districts, housing districts and divisions of a city or a town were literally separated by red lines. And the least desirable pieces of real estate were designated as Black zones, where say we can let the Black people stay here, but the pristine and more desirable real estate areas were quarantined off as white only. And then when these housing authorities began to rise up with housing contracts, where the person who bought the home will contract themselves to, when they sell it, that they would never sell it to a Black person. And this was in writing with the contracts, most famously out in New York. Lubbock Town became all in the headlines about 10 years ago, because some of those mortgage contracts, saw the light of day, and people were able to actually read some of these, where the people were contracted not to sell to Black people. And they were, of course, more recent than the 1950s. These were in the 1980s and the 1990s. So it's not as far back as you think. People were still carrying on with this tradition of we would not sell this house to Black people. And so that's what I was referring to, good brother Mark Harris, when I brought that up, just historically and on into recent history. Now, today, of course, Black people can get loans. I don't think we're saying that no Black person can get a loan, but you still see that discrimination rearing its ugly head. Case in point. And they've actually been studies done about this, but there are testimonials of individuals who were trying to get a loan or trying to sell their house, but they would have their white friends take pictures of themselves and portray it as if the white people were actually in control of the property, and how that the white people were actually applying for the loan. And they sat back and watching those loans were getting approved left and right. Whereas the Black people, when they try to go through as Black people, that it wasn't. And so you still have examples of that happening. We're not saying that Black people can't get loans; they truly can, especially to go to college and rack up a bunch of debt. Yeah, they'll really let you do that, so they can make you a debt slave. But in any event, I want to let the other brothers chime in on that question that he asked.
I would encourage Mark to just research under racial disparities in lending practices. Racial disparities in lending practices. And several categories will come up. One which you already noted, mortgage lending, refinancing and home equity loans, auto loans. This is today. This isn't historically. It's historically and today. Small business loans, student loans, and other credit products, appraisals, and property valuation. And that, again, you were referring to that because there are several lawsuits out where a Black couple had their home appraised and it was very low. Then they did the de-blacking of their home and put white pictures and all that to make it look like it was a white home. And magically, after upon the second appraisal, it jumped up several $100,000.
Amazing.
So anyone today, unfortunately, and again, some people are really being genuine about it when they say they don't know, but a lot of people aren't. Anyone that says that racism doesn't exist today and that Black people, quote unquote, have a fair shot like everyone else is statistically incorrect. The facts do not bear you out.
You got a follow-up question, Brother Charles?
Yeah, I see it. How do we counter the white supremacist narrative then? And I feel like we're countering it now with programming like this, where you can listen in and hear these myths be debunked and be presented with actual historical documentation to expose the narrative. Because the first thing that they do, and when I say they, I like in the metaphorical they, not in like the spooky conspiratorial sense, but the individuals that perpetuate these myths. The first thing they're going to do is just deny. That's the first thing they're going to do. They're just going to deny that it's true. And when you supply them with evidence, then they're going to say, oh, you're reading that wrong. So I'm saying that to say, everybody's going to have an answer to this. So very seldomly will you come across somebody that would just be confronted with the facts and abandon their position, apologize, and start saying what the truth is. Now, if you're dealing with an honorable person, then that's what they'll do, because everybody has not been taught the truth. I think we have to just admit that that's the case. But if you've been taught lies and you encounter somebody that has been telling the truth, even if your lie came from Pappy and Grandpappy, even if your lie came from Ma and Meemaw, whoever your lie came from, once you're confronted with the facts, as we've done so tonight, confronted with facts. So that's what I did as a history teacher. I confronted with facts. I would even go into the diaries of Confederate soldiers and let them explain their perspective on it, because it's all about getting down to the facts of the matter. That's a way that we counter the narrative. It's not saying that the narrative is going to disappear, but it is saying that we can begin to have an impact on the amplification of that narrative by telling the truth. And that's the little thing that little old us can do in our little corner of the world. And another thing that he asked was, what is our plan of action for our people? How do you suggest we implement the plan?
Before you answer
ahead,
that question, that first question that Mark asked is a very, very powerful question, because that if we're serious about mounting an effective strategy to what's happening today, it begins with that question that Mark asked. And so a one-word answer, Mark, or one sentence answer is to get yourself properly educated on exactly what race is, because many of us do not know what race is. I would also encourage you just to begin your research by going and looking up Dr. Jacqueline Battalor's YouTube, Birth of a White Nation. And that will give you the factual beginnings about how this white supremacist narrative began. And I really want you to watch it with an open mind and understand the gravity of the things that she's saying. So that's hugely important that we become educated. I always challenge people by this question. If you're going to have a serious discussion on race, you need to be able to answer the following three things. What is race? Who created it? And for what purpose was it designed? What is race? Who created it? And for what purpose was it designed? If you don't know the factual answers to that question, you'll never be able to mount an effective strategy against white supremacy.
It's a great point. Brother J Mac, did you have some input on that before we move to the next question?
No, not really. You guys gave some great advice. I'm ready for the next topic. Matter of fact, I can queue up my next video if that's okay.
Okay, yeah. So you go ahead and queue up your next video. And we talked about the plan of action and how we implement it. We talked about how our good brother could actually get started with that. Excellent. And then of course we have Pastor Isaiah Robinson in the comments. My goodness, I feel like we got a celebrity in here. Pastor Robinson has been doing excellent, groundbreaking work in urban apologetics and exposing the white nationalism that's permeating through a lot of the pulpits. And we greatly appreciate the work that you're doing, Pastor Robinson. You are an inspiration to us, and we have actually presented some of your work in this live. Outstanding job that you're doing, and just continue to do so, my brother. And he's saying that you're doing a wonderful job. So that's high praise, Brother J Mac. I think you need to take a bow, brother. And as we get ready to play your next video, as we segue into this, is it ready so we can go ahead and listen to it?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's added to the stage and it's on you.
Yes, sir. For our use, Sister Lurie, Miss Lurie, Daniel Favors show. Hopefully, I don't think she'll mind us playing a little bit of excerpt here.
It smells like when God farts. I don't know what it smells like when, I don't know what it looks like if God has to blow its nose, but these are things that you can know. So if you're going to be intellectually lazy and suggest that Jasmine Crockett is on the AIPAC payroll when all the data says that is just simply not true, the records, the facts, then you should just know that we see you. And y'all did this with Vice President Kamala Harris. You wanted to be a single issue voter. And listen, if you're going to be a single issue voter, that is real cute. I'm a black woman. I'm a black voter. I wouldn't know what that's like because I live a multifaceted life. But to be a single issue voter on an issue that doesn't impact your day-to-day lived experience, and at the same time be wholly ineffective at preventing the white nationalists from destroying Gaza while you're losing civil rights, while you're losing voting rights, while you lost access to integration, and now we have entered into Jim Crow, all behind an issue that you lost on anyway, that just seems like a waste of electoral energy. Not that we should not be aware of it, which is why I think it's also important to hold our local officials accountable, but to act like this case is this race should be decided based on Israel, that don't make no sense. Namely, because when Texas gets cold, y'all can't even keep people warm. Y'all's energy center just put out a report that you are very concerned in the state of Texas about the ability to keep people warm this winter, not because you have a whole bunch of people moving to Texas, but because you have these AI data centers that your IDF and Israeli AIPAC funded senators both voted for and support right now, eating up all your energy. When it rains in Texas, y'all can't keep people from dying because the infrastructure is not there. Y'all have problems. Y'all can't give access to healthcare to people who actually need the healthcare. If you, God forbid, you need to have a miscarriage in the state of Texas that does not fully spontaneously eject itself from your body, you're not going to be able to get the healthcare that you need in order to maintain your own lived life. So miss me with the whole, this is only about Israel. And it's so weird to me because we've had not 1, not 2, not 3, not 10, but 25 elections this year alone at the state level. And I don't remember these people nor any of the other folks who decided Israel is the only thing that matters when a black woman runs. I don't remember them making videos about the other races that, according to the logic that was shared there, are also related to what's happening in Israel. They made not a video about these state races. They ain't seen nothing. And not only that, there is a solid third of the Senate up for re-election, which means there are 33, 34 seats in the Senate that people can vie for right now. I don't see a single video when it comes to Israel and any of those other races, but there is a black woman in this race. There's a black woman in this race. So I just need black people to do better, especially, but I need all of us to do much, much better. Let's talk about who else should do better. The people who were featured in that Vanity Fair article. Child.
Yeah, I just wanted to play that. She said everything I've been saying,
Child.
and she put it in in a 2-minute smack up, right?
Well, the interesting thing that we can point out here and dealing with Israel, and of course the effect on Christian Zionism and especially Protestant Christianity, has really led to a sort of apocalyptic hair trigger situation with a lot of these evangelicals that are in positions of influence to enact these doomsday scenarios concerning Israel. And I did a Bible study on this, against Christian Zionism. A couple of Christian Zionists wanted to debate me about a couple things that I presented, which is fine. I mean, I'll gladly show you the New Testament theology and how it is against any notion of Christian Zionism. But basically, Dave Chappelle had an interesting observation in his new Netflix special, Unstoppable, I believe it's called, where he got a lot of pushback for doing a show in Saudi Arabia after the journalist Khashoggi was assassinated by the Saudi government. And they were portraying to Dave Chappelle like he's betraying the nation. Maybe that's going back to what the good brother George pointed out earlier about having to prove our Americanism. And so what Dave Chappelle said is, hey, you getting on me for doing a show in Saudi Arabia, and they killed one journalist, and then Israel's killed 270 journalists in this Israeli Gaza war. But you got nothing to say about that. What about all those journalists? And so there's a lot of hypocrisy on the Israel issue. And there's a lot of mud that gets slung back and forth. But it's funny coming from these so-called America First people that really is actually kind of Israel first, then America. And now I'm reminded of something that one of our visitors came on, talking crazy. Once again, look like you're about to rob a bank, but 2-cup Shakur. But one of the things that he said is Israel is the 51st state of America, problem number one. And, at what point do we draw the line on foreign aid to other countries, but especially Israel? I mean, I know you could never bring this up politically and survive an election because they would brand you as anti-Semitic. But at what point does America draw the line and say, we're going to have to cut back on this foreign aid?
Yeah. If you could share my screen again, Brother Charles. So this website is opensecrets.org. This particular website tracks the contributions given to any representative, particularly in the federal government. And you go to this website and you can find Jasmine Crockett, and you can see all her contributors. And what one name you will not find in her contributors is APAC. Excuse me. You will not find APAC in her contributors. So once that was established, then they kind of shifted and said, well, you voted for bills funding Israel. Well, she said out of her own mouth, she's never voted for a bill that did not include funding for Gaza. So you got how many members of Congress? Is it 400 something members of Congress, Brother Charles?
435, I believe it is,
right.
But let me double check that.
Right. So you have all these members of Congress, and she has one vote
Yep,
And
435. I was correct.
and so they're going to give money to Israel, but she's making sure that they're giving money also to Gaza, to the Palestinian people, giving funding, aid, whatever else need. And not only her, but brother Tellerico, who's also a good guy, and I'm not going to trash him because they're he's running a good campaign too. The point is that we should not ever become a one issue voter and say, okay, well, since you voted to fund Israel, then therefore we can't vote for you. So therefore, just let the MAGA Republicans continue to control Congress and wreck the government and destroy the country and get rid of U.S. aid and get rid of all the other institutions that protect and to provide services for the American people. And if that's the route you guys want to continue to go, then that's what we'll get. But if you are ready to stop this, you cannot continue to be a one-issue voter. And that I wanted to bring this fact out. So again, it's opensecrets.org. Opensecrets.org. Stop sharing that.
Yeah, opensecrets.org, not like the closed secrets, like the Epstein files. Listen, those jokers released those Epstein files, and I looked at 119 pages that was straight black.
So you know what that tells you,
report.
don't you, Brother Charles? Whose face is in those pages?
Redacted the whole report, but then released it. So they can say, well, we released it, but, you couldn't read anything on it. But anyway, somebody had a problem with you, Brother J. Mack, talking about Jasmine Crockett. Now, I don't know who this person is. Of course, these folks, they post anonymously, so you can't know who they are.
I guarantee you this is probably a Charlie Kirk bro.
A Charlie Kirk supporter.
Yeah,
well, hey, look, my name's Charles Johnson, and I'm front and center. I'm not hiding who I am.
Yeah, he probably.
But anyway,
we're
Crusader,
racist, and
yeah,
we're racist because
we don't want Jasmine Crockett. Well, who are you?
I mean, what has Jasmine done to you? Let me ask you a question.
But this is the flaw in our strategy again, because this is how they mount it. We're trying to deal with a serious political representative is Jasmine Crockett, but now we have to get sidetracked with race. So now we're in defense mode and reaction mode because they know how to do that. All he has to do, it doesn't matter how he looks. It doesn't matter that he sounds totally ignorant. That's not the point here. The point is to throw us off by having to deal with race. And it always benefits them versus actually talking about what she's really capable of doing. And until we find a way to extricate ourselves from this racial jail that we're in racial jail because we're encumbered with a weight that no one else is. And that's going to slow us down and keep and divide us because we're doing it to ourselves. We have people in our own community doing this to Jasmine Crockett, like they did to Kamala Harris. So it's a mindset that we have to understand we're losing on this daily reactionary position of showing people how racist they're being by us trying to address fair representation for our community. I know that was a long-winded way of saying it, but that's what they're doing is they're throwing all these racial obstacles in our way so that we have to stumble over those while they just off to the races, creating things out of nothing, hiring whoever they want to hire, firing people who are capable, more than capable, and putting in people who are way underqualified while we're still here trying to show them, hey, you know what you guys are doing isn't right. And all we get for that is an ignorant comment like this that is very effective.
I heard
Yeah,
you, brother,
exactly right.
brother George. I honestly, I laughed at this, and I really wasn't going to respond. That's why I just asked the guy.
I
What
just
what
put
did
it up there
Jasmine
for
do to you?
kicks and
Because this
giggles.
guy's not black. Some troll. He's a troll. I don't waste my time.
Well, let's not say he's not black, because we do have some black people
That's
that
true.
are that have allowed themselves to become ventriloquist dummies for white supremacy.
That's true. That's true.
So there are black people that are out attacking Jasmine White, and I was gonna bring up Stephen A. Smith, but then he turned around and apologized. So I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't do the bit then, because he did apologize for allowing himself to be weaponized against his sister Jasmine Crockett. But there are a lot of black people who, tend to lean right wing, that are not apologetic for their attacks on black people.
Right.
Case in point, the guy that we were talking about earlier, and hold on, brother Mark Harris did have a comment here. Dude, get out of here with that Jasmine Crockett hate. Amen, brother, because that's exactly what it is Jasmine Crockett hate. And so, look, we've always had race traitors among us. The Stevens from Django, what we used to call Uncle Tom's, Sambos. We do have these individuals that embody white supremacy and attack black people for even bringing up white supremacy as if it's not a thing. And we do have those particular black MAGAs that are out here. And when we start talking about Chad O. Jackson, as we have mentioned him before, he has some things to say about the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, we're going to address that on Dr. King Day.
That still gets a lot of traction. And so stay tuned, because we will be unmasking the attacks on Dr. King, not unlike the way that they try to attack all of our leaders, because it's all a part of their propaganda war to de-emphasize and delegitimize. And so we definitely have to expose that. So guys, we're coming up on a 1 hour and a half mark, so we're getting ready to get off. If there's any parting thoughts that you have, going to start with good brother George, and then brother J Mac, and then myself.
Well, even though we discussed two separate topics, they're both inextricably linked, and it doesn't matter what the topic is. What I would encourage people to do is look at the principles of how the attack is being waged. And the connecting principle is this concept of white supremacy. And they use the same tactics. So I would encourage people to, instead of looking at which side is right and which side is wrong, step away from the debate and start looking at how race is having an impact in that discussion, and how it's making people say certain things based on whichever racial identity that they're on. Because remember, white people is not a real thing. So the minute you start getting into a debate based on skin color, you're already talking in irrational terms. You're talking irrational. So when people say, white people do this, or black people do that, they're talking irrationally. When you make policy based on white people or black people, it's irrational policy that's actually killing people. So the larger issue is not so much Jasmine Crockett, Project 2025, Trump. Those are the obstacles. The bigger issue is maintaining the racial hierarchy. And if you start looking at it that way, it frames the discussion and the debate differently.
We started off with black Confederate apologists particularly Chad O. Jackson. In the words of the great Foghorn Leghorn, and how he would classify that, he would say, "Oh, I say, that dog don't hunt. He's like a dog that don't hunt, And this is an interesting and ongoing topic, and I wouldn't, I want to say, and I want to encourage people to do some research, because you're gonna run into some folk that's gonna try and approach you with this nonsense, and they're gonna be real slick and smooth tongue with it, to the point where they can almost convince you. So make sure that you do your research, so you'll know what you're talking about. And even if they can't convince you, they can convince people who may be listening to the conversation, whether it be your friends, your family, or other people in your influence. So that's basically what I want to say. And like I said, Jasmine Crockett doesn't really need me to defend her, but I'm really pushing back, and people like me, I'm not the only one pushing back against the misinformation. We can't afford to let these people continue to have power and run amok and destroy our government. So, and we're doing it not only for the Black community, we're doing it for all communities. For the veterans, for the seniors. You know what I'm saying? All the programs that affect that they have cut, and they let Elon Musk come in here and just run amok, and just that. And I'm gonna land on this.
Doge.
Yeah. What's the lady? What's the lady? She's Donald Trump's in the White House. I think she's the. I forgot her title.
Chief of staff.
Yeah, she just did a bunch of recent interviews, and she said
Vanity Fair.
She said that there's no way on God's green earth, and we can pull that up some other time. She said no way on God's green earth should Doge and Elon Musk have been allowed to run amok and destroy U.S. aid and other programs that help people. She said that out of her own mouth, man. I'm like, whoa. So.
You talk about Carolyn Levitt?
No, not her.
That's the press secretary. The one that speaks for him.
Huh?
She's the current chief of staff for Trump.
Yeah, she's chief of staff. Yeah, not Carolyn Levitt. Not that. Yeah, she's just a mouthpiece. She's just a Trump mouthpiece. I'm talking about her. Yeah, man, and to that, I hope that
Susie Wiles.
Yeah, Susie Wiles, that's her. So I hope that goodwill people of all nationalities, all races and creeds, who are U.S. citizens, pay attention closely to what we're talking about, because it's, in the end, all of this stuff affects them too. And all the policies and things. They had the No Kings rallies and the different things going on around the country. And they had some recent elections. So I think people are energized. Don't get me wrong, because we've seen that in the recent elections. But I just want people to keep that same energy, keep that going, because these folk are only going to, if we don't get them out of power, they're going to get worse. And I'll just land on that.
Right. And we began coming on tonight, dispelling myths. The lost cause rhetoric began dealing
I'm
with.
Sorry, Brother Charles. One last thing.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
People try to pass us off as liberal shills and whatever. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I'm a former Republican. I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh. That's who I am. Okay, I'm a former Republican in the late '90s, early 2000s. And I was crazy conservative. You ask my friend, he's probably not watching. But if Brother Phil was watching right now, he'd say, yeah, that dude was tripping. So I'm just telling you, Brother Charles, he's conservative. He's a former Republican. Brother George, I believe, is conservative and former Republican. So we're not just some what they call yellow belly, softy, lefty liberals. We are telling the truth, kind of like the Lincoln Project, so to speak. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to put that out there, because that's not who we are. I mean, I've never been a Democrat in my entire life. And I have been a member of the Republican Party, voted Republican. I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh too back in the day, you know, before it was exposed to me as far as who and what he is and what he represented. And so I've never been down with Dixie, and that's usually where we part ways. So anybody that's trying to introduce Dixie, I've always been an opponent. And with the elevation of Trump, it just finally drove me away from Republicans altogether because they let him take over their party and turn it into a political cult of personality. And I was very disappointed to see the grand old party go out like that. But these are the results of when you employ the Southern strategy in the 1970s, and you courted the Dixie vote that was despondent after the Democratic Party did civil rights, and they broke away from the Democratic Party, formed the Dixiecrat Party, ran Alabama Governor George Wallace, the segregationist, for president, and literally won 7 southern states. The only independent candidacy they ever pull off a coup like that. And the Republicans saw that happen, and they were just salivating. They said, we got to figure out a way to bring those Dixiecrats into the fold and create what they call the Solid South, which still stands for the most part to this day in 2025. But those are the Dixie vote. Those are the Dixie voters. And, you know, just like my grandmama used to tell me, all money ain't good money. All votes ain't good votes. And so we should definitely recognize that history. And those folks were normally in the basement of the Republican Party, you know, never allowed to come into the House. But with the elevation of Trump, they've taken over the party. The Dixie vote is now front and center. And there's not an accident that on January 6th, right next to those Trump flags, you saw the Confederate battle flags. That's not a coincidence at all. That's actually what's happened to the grand old party. I used to tell my friends sometimes, like, maybe if, you know, once Trumpism has gone into the dustbin of history, maybe I can return to my former home politically. But then I got to thinking, no, even when Trump leaves the scene, those folks are still there. And those folks are not the friends of Black people. Don't let anybody persuade you otherwise. And so with that, it's been a great show. Enjoyed having you brothers here. Would love to have you back on, good brother George. Around Martin Luther King Day, we're going to be doing an expose on the attacks on Martin Luther King's legacy and the determination to destroy his legacy and to actually turn Black people against his legacy. So we're going to lay all that out, play a lot of clips and videos that you've never seen before. And we're going to get into that. So without further ado, we're going to bid you farewell. I love if Brother J Mac, you will close us out with a word of prayer before we adjourn.
Yes, sir. Dear Heavenly Father, gracious God and creator of all things, we just thank you for this day that you have given us the breath of life one more day, and that you have allowed us to make a way, or we allowed us to find a way to provide for our families and to help our neighbors and to do the things that we need to do. And Heavenly Father, we need guidance and strength. I know that the civil rights leaders prayed the same thing for guidance. They prayed for direction, and they prayed that you would touch the hearts of men to make the right changes, the righteous changes, Father. And so we are asking again, because we're seem to be going backwards now, but we ask that you would touch the hearts of men all over this country, men and women, and that you would touch them in a righteous way, that we will go in the right direction as a country and do the right things by our neighbors and our neighbors that live, not only our neighbors in our own neighborhoods, but even the neighbors in nations. So in keeping it with what Jesus has taught, the real Jesus and what he taught, how we're supposed to treat our neighbors and how we're supposed to treat our brothers and how we're supposed to treat those around us. So we ask all these things, Father, that you will protect us, you will keep us and give us wisdom. in all things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen and amen. Hey, Brother Mark Harris says it's a great show. Keep it going, fellas. We will keep it going. Till next time, you all stay blessed.